Hello, everybody, again. I hope you're well and happy wherever you are. Um, my name is Georgia Byng, and I'm here to read you another chapter of Molly Moon's incredible book of hypnotism, which is a book that I wrote about a child hypnotist. Her name is Molly Moon. I put this picture up today. It's by Picasso, who you've probably heard of. He's not a real Picasso, because if it was, it would be worth millions and millions and millions of pounds, dollars, yen, euros. And it is an amazing picture because it's just so positive, and I just love it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of my favourite pictures in the whole wide world. So this is the poster of it, and I put it there for you to look at today. And I'm going to read you chapter 8 of Molly Moon's incredible book of hypnotism. Chapter 8. Edna and Molly arrived back at the orphanage in a swirl of flying gravel. The place was empty and quiet since Miss Addison was still out and the other children had not yet returned from their walk. Molly and Petula went inside. Petula slipped outside to explore the garden, and Molly went back up to the attic room, feeling very pleased with herself. She sat down on the bed to think about the extraordinary thing she had just done. Hypnotising Edna seemed almost as though it had been a dream. Music from the kitchen radio drifted faintly up the stairs as Molly marvelled at her new power. Her eyes felt tired. Something odd had definitely happened to them when she'd hypnotised Edna. They'd felt as though they'd been glowing, and now they felt dull and heavy. Molly flicked through the hypnotism book to see if there was anything about glowing or tired eyes. In the How to Hypnotise a Crowd chapter, there was a part that read, "It's all in the eyes." To hypnotise a large crowd, you must learn to hypnotise using only the eyes. This is very tiring for the eyes. Practice these exercises. The book had diagrams of an eye looking left, an eye looking right, an eye looking at objects close and far. Then Molly came to something called the looking glass exercise. Stand in front of a looking glass and stare straight into your own eyes. Try not to blink. Soon your face will change shape. Do not be alarmed. Your eyes will feel as though they are glowing. This glowing feeling is the feeling you must have to hypnotise people with your eyes only. And this is the trick you need to hypnotise a crowd. So, had Molly hypnotised Edna using just her eyes? Molly was sure she'd used the spoon like a pendulum, and her voice too. She went to the mirror and stared at herself. There was her pink, blotchy face and her potato nose. She stared at her closely set eyes. Her eyes glared back, green and intense. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, she stared. Her eyes quivered and then seemed to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The music downstairs sounded very distant. Molly concentrated on her eyes and tried not to blink, trying to make her eyes feel as if they were glowing again. Then suddenly something peculiar happened. Molly lost her own face entirely, and as if by magic, a different face began to grow where Molly's real face had been. Molly's hair turned orange and spiky. A big safety pin grew out of the side of her nose, and her eyelids were covered with blue and white makeup. She was staring at herself as a punk. Molly's legs felt all tingly, and her eyes felt as though they were throbbing, glowing and throbbing, switching off and on like the beam of a lighthouse. And this, the book said, was the eye trick for hypnotising crowds. Molly blinked hard. She was relieved to see her normal face in the mirror again. That had been strange. Had the looking glass exercise made her hypnotise herself? Perhaps the book would explain what had happened. Molly scanned the section entitled The Looking Glass Exercise. There was a paragraph called Hypnotising Yourself. Imagine forms of yourself that you would like to be, suggested the book. For instance, if you would like to be kinder or bolder, imagine yourself as being kinder or bolder, and in the looking glass you will see an alternative you. Molly sat back feeling puzzled. She hadn't imagined herself as a punk, yet the vision had just leapt out of the mirror. It was as if her unconscious mind had wanted her to be like a punk and had, through hypnosis, shown her a different identity. What were punks? She had thought of them as being rebellious people. Molly certainly wanted to be a rebel, yes. It seemed that her new unconscious mind was one step ahead of her, showing her how deep down she wanted to be. Sliding the hypnotism book safely under her mattress, she sat down to wonder what other Mollys could be conjured up. Then, still wondering about this, she took a pencil and began to bore a hole through a piece of soap from the basin. She unravelled a piece of cord from the bed cover's fringe, snapped it off, and threaded it through the soap. Now she had a homemade pendulum. It wasn't a very good one, but it would have to do, and though she was tired, there was time to try it out on Edna before everyone else arrived back. So, putting her dressing gown on, she went downstairs. On the way, she passed Petula, who trotted happily along after her. Down the swooping staircase Molly went until she was standing on the checkered stone floor of the hall. Molly heard music again coming from the TV room, and to her surprise, she heard Hazel Hackersley's whiny, singing voice. Hazel must have somehow evaded the Saturday morning walk. Molly crept up the passage and peeped through the common room door. She saw Hazel dressed in a cat outfit, wearing a white leotard, white tights, white tap shoes, and white fluffy ears on a hairband. It was her talent competition outfit. In her hand she swung a white tail, and whilst she danced she sang, "I'm sorry I chased those pigeons. I'm sorry I killed that rat. I'm sorry I like to steal the milk. It's just I am a cat. Meow, meow." Molly watched Hazel tap dancing round the room, opening her eyes very wide, fluttering her eyelids, and looking really stupid. Molly wished she had a camera. Then she had another idea. When Hazel was curtsying, Molly took a deep breath and went in. "Oh no, you, Drono. You're with smelly Petula. Not better, are you?" moaned Hazel. Petula growled at her. "Yes, a bit better, thank you," said Molly, taking the soap pendulum out of her pocket. She sat down in front of Hazel and began swinging the soap pendulum as if she was just playing with it. "What's that?" said Hazel. "Soap you carry because your hands sweat so much." Molly held the pendulum in front of her face and swung it rhythmically from side to side. "What are you doing?" "Just relaxing," said Molly. "No, you're not. You're trying to hypnotise me," snapped Hazel. "Typical of a weirdo like you to think that hypnotism is something real." Molly stopped swinging the soap. "No, I'm not," she said quickly. "You're so weird," sneered Hazel. Then Molly realised that she had approached Hazel too clumsily. Her previous success had made her overconfident. Hazel was now too alert for Molly to hypnotise. "I wasn't trying to hypnotise you. This isn't a pendulum. It's a soap on a string so that I won't lose it in the bath." "I hope you're not planning to have a bath," said Hazel nastily, rewinding her cassette, "because Addiston would not be pleased to hear that you've ignored her punishment. If you're covered in sick, you'll just have to stay that way. No bath for 4 weeks, wasn't it?" "Yep," said Molly. "Or 3. I'm just preparing myself." Hazel looked at Molly in disgust. "Prize weirdo," she said. Then, as Molly was leaving the room, Hazel said slyly, "By the way, have you heard?" "Heard what?" "Rocky's found a family." The words walloped Molly. It was as if a cascade of icy water had drenched her from head to foot. She found it hard to speak. When?" Hazel smiled spitefully. "That American couple that came yesterday, amazingly, they liked him. Weird couple. Anyway, he left last night. Didn't say good night to you, did he? That's because, well, he told me he's gone right off you. Said it was like eating too much of something. He said he kind of overdosed on you. Said he'd drop you a line." "You're joking. Or anyway, making it up," said Molly. "No, not joking. I suppose it is funny," Hazel replied coldly. "Funny." Molly stared at Hazel's mean face. "Liar," she said, turning away, but inside fierce emotions scorched her. Rocky leaving? The idea was horrific. Molly couldn't believe it. The thought of losing Rocky was devastating, like losing your arm or your leg or your whole family all at once, because he was all the family that Molly had. Hazel must be lying. Rocky would never have left without consulting Molly. In fact, he wouldn't leave unless he was adopted with her. That had always been their pact. If they went, they'd go together. Hazel's bullying had simply reached a new level. Yet a dreadful suspicion filled Molly that Hazel wasn't lying. As Molly left the room and headed for the stairs, a growing fear chilled her heart. Her clamming hands began to sweat, but she felt intensely cold. On the first floor landing, the light coming from the boys' bedroom doorway hit the passageway, familiar and friendly. Seeing this, Molly knew Rocky's possessions would wink at her as soon as she entered his room. She would feel a fool for falling for Hazel's story. But with every step she took, her head became more numb. Then the ghastly truth hit her, as undeniable as a thump in the face. Rocky's bed was stripped of its sheets. Its 3 blankets were folded into neat rectangles, and its pillow was without a cover. His bedside table stood bare of comics. The wardrobe was open, and his clothes were gone. Molly could hardly breathe. An invisible terror seemed to have gripped her neck and her brain so that she couldn't use her lungs. She fell against the doorpost, staring at the anonymous corner in the ownerless bed. "How could you?" she whispered. Molly slopped across the room and sat on Rocky's old mattress. It was a little while before she could breathe normally and think logically. In her heart she felt sure that Rocky wouldn't leave without saying goodbye unless he had a very good reason. They'd had an argument, but it wasn't that serious. And although Rocky had been secretive lately, Molly didn't believe that he was sick of her. That part of the idea was Hazel's vicious imagination. But what could explain his sudden disappearance? He had always been unreliable and a bit of a wanderer. But Molly didn't think that his faults would actually make him forget to say goodbye to her. They were like brother and sister. He couldn't have been that vague. It was all too strange. With Rocky gone, Molly had no one. No one except Petula. The younger kids were okay, but they were too young to be her friends. Living here without Rocky was inconceivable. She must find out where he was and talk to him. But as she dragged herself upstairs to her attic room, Molly was confused and lost. In a daze, she turned the basin tap on to wash her face. She felt very muddled, upset and disorientated. She glanced up at herself in the mirror. There were her closely set eyes, burning with tears. She stared intently at her reflection, remembering what had happened when she'd practiced the looking glass exercise before. Perhaps if she imagined herself feeling good now, she could hypnotize herself into happiness. As she stared, her features disappeared. The meowing music from Hazel's tap dance floated upstairs, and Molly imagined that she didn't feel so bad. In a moment, her face changed. Her cheeks became rounder and rosier, her hair softer, blonder, and curlier. Ribbons grew in it. She looked pretty, like a child star. It was incredible. Molly started to feel a tingling sensation, like the fusion feeling, creeping up her body again. Her depression peeled away from her like a crusty old cocoon, and optimism took its place. Once more through the mirror, Molly's unconscious mind was telling her how she wanted to be and how she could change. As Molly's unfamiliar glossy self stared back at her, the idea hit her. A huge and stunning idea. She had this eye trick under her belt, and the eye trick was the hypnotism trick used on crowds. There would be an audience, a crowd of watching people at the town talent competition in a few days' time. Somebody had to win that competition with its huge cash prize. Why shouldn't that somebody be Molly? Molly blinked and was herself again. But now she was feeling hopeful. She refused to believe that Rocky hated her, even if he had gone. She made up her mind on the spot. She'd discover where he was. She'd work out a way to leave Hardwick House, and then she would join him. It might be difficult, but Molly promised herself she'd use every single ounce of energy and talent that she had to find Rocky, and she wouldn't give up until they were together again. And that is the end of chapter 8. Something pinged on my computer in the middle of it. I hope it didn't disturb you. And also I made a few slip-ups, but never mind. I'm not perfect. So here we go. It's another goodbye, another keep well, keep happy, be kind, and happy hypnotizing wherever you are. Happy hypnotizing. Bye.